I was touring Cedar bass boats. One of the things I discovered the week after the election, they said was the best week of bass boat sales they'd ever seen. They said it was an amazing thing. People saw the election, said Hillary isn't president. We actually got some folks who have some sense, and they turned around on Wednesday, picked up the phone and said, I'm going to buy me a bass boat. Now what's interesting is visiting with the Sage family here, they said on the Wednesday after the election, suddenly people started calling saying, hey, you know that order you quoted 6-8 months ago? Let's go ahead and do it. Just that degree of certainty in the economy that you're not going to have a federal government coming in and trying to destroy the energy industry, coming in and trying to shut down jobs, that we're going to have some stability and predictability. That in turn generated real demand, people eager to grow their business. I think there are 4 critical priorities for Congress and the new administration. Number 1, we have got to repeal Obamacare. You know, we've had some rough couple of weeks on the Obamacare repeal effort. As you know, a couple of weeks ago it was voted down by a single vote. A lot of folks in the media celebrated that as the demise of Obamacare repeal. Well, I think as Mark Twain famously said, rumors of my death are greatly exaggerated. I believe failure is not an option. Republicans have spent 7 years promising the American people, if you elect us, we will repeal Obamacare. It is a disaster. Obamacare is the biggest job killer in this country. You know, I do small business roundtables all over the state. Sit down with small business owners and do something very strange in the world of politics. Shut up and listen. And just ask small business owners, tell me what challenges you're facing. What are you worried about? What are you scared about? What are you praying about? Over and over and over again, I've never done a small business roundtable where at least half the small business owners around the table didn't list Obamacare as the single biggest challenge they're facing. When I ask folks here, what are your challenges? First words out of their mouth is healthcare. Biggest job killer in this country, millions of Americans lost their jobs, forced into part-time work, lost their health insurance, lost their doctors. Millions of Americans have seen their premiums skyrocket. We all remember President Obama sold Obamacare, saying if you like your health insurance plan, you can keep it. If you like your doctor, you can keep it. Millions upon millions of Americans discovered that wasn't true when their health insurance plan was canceled, when they lost their doctors. PolitiFact, a very left-leaning media source, labeled Obama's promise, if you like your doctor, you keep your doctor, as 2013's lie of the year. And the biggest reason people are so unhappy with Obamacare, hurting under Obamacare, is premiums have skyrocketed. Obama promised the American people under Obamacare the average family's premiums would drop $2,500 a year. Now that didn't prove slightly wrong. That didn't prove a little bit right. It proved wildly and entirely and deliberately false. In fact, the average family's premiums have increased over $5,000 a year. I hear that all over Texas. People say, I can't afford health insurance. Meeting today with the company leaders here at Sage Oil and Back. One couple shared that their monthly premiums are $1,300 a month. That's a lot of money. As they pointed out, that's more than many people pay on their mortgage for health insurance. They said it's more than they typically would spend on health insurance. But that's what Obamacare has done. And I'll tell you, I think we're a lot closer to delivering on that promise than many outside observers think. I think in the Senate we're at about 45, 46 votes. We need 50. We're not there. We need another 4 or 5. I believe we can get it. And the key to uniting Republicans to delivering on that promise is focusing like a laser on lowering premiums. Premiums are the biggest thing that make people unhappy about Obamacare. How do we lower premiums? Econ 101, if you want prices to go down, you want more choices, more options, more competition. What does Obamacare do? Fewer choices, less options, less competition, premiums go up. And I'll tell you, in the Senate bill, there are 2 amendments that I drafted that are included in the Senate bill that are really fundamental for lowering the cost of health insurance. Number one is an amendment that says you can use your health savings account to pay insurance premiums. That's currently illegal. That means you could pay your premiums pre-tax, which means for millions of Americans, that's an immediate reduction in your effective premiums of 20 to 30%. That's a big deal in terms of immediate relief. A second amendment that I introduced that's also in the bill is even bigger and more significant. It's what's called the Consumer Freedom Amendment. Consumer Freedom Amendment says you, the consumer, should be in charge of your health care. You should have the right to decide what health insurance you and your family need. You shouldn't have it dictated by Washington. It should be your choice. Health and Human Services Agency scored the Consumer Freedom Amendment. They concluded that it would expand health insurance coverage in America by 2.2 million people. Over 2 million new people would get health insurance because suddenly they'd be able to afford it. And it concluded that it would reduce health insurance premiums by over $7,000 a year. Now, you know, if you're a single mom, if you're a young person starting your career, $7,000 a year is real money. When you're struggling to make it, when you're struggling to provide for your kids, $7,000 a year in savings makes a difference. How do we get it done? How do we deliver? If we can lower premiums, if we can deliver results, that's a win for everybody. It's a win for conservatives. It's a win for moderates. It's a win for the men and women we were elected to represent. Second big priority, tax reform. You want to unleash economic growth? Tax reform is a powerful, powerful engine for helping small businesses grow and expand and create jobs. The advice that I've given the President on tax reform has been two words: bold and simple. I think there is power to bold simplicity. Ideally, I'd like to see a simple flat tax where we abolish the IRS. Now, some folks might say, well, look, that's a little extreme. That's a little radical. You mean like electing Donald Trump as president? Listen, we have a president who wants to be bold. That's a good characteristic of the president. And I'm encouraging the president, let's be bold. You know what? It is almost as hard to pass a little piddling tax bill as it is to pass something big and significant that unleashes growth. A simple flat tax, we could see 5 million new jobs, wages rising across the country, thousands of hours, millions of hours that are wasted in tax preparation. Instead, you fill out a simple postcard. Big and bold, I believe we can and will deliver on tax reform. Third big priority, regulatory reform. Regulatory reform may be the single thing I'm most optimistic about with this new administration. Virtually every single cabinet member I've sat down with, among the first words out of their mouth have been reg reform. Taking the boot of the federal government off the back of the necks of small businesses and farmers and ranchers and job creators. A number of years back, I was out in West Texas. And I asked folks, I said, what's the difference between regulators and locusts? I said, well, the thing is, you can't use pesticide on the regulators. And this old West Texas farmer, he leaned forward and said, want that? But if we can simply lift that burden, let the innovators, let the job creators, let the entrepreneurs do what you do best, which is create more jobs and more opportunity without federal regulation coming and stifling what you're trying to do. Reg reform and tax reform together will unleash millions of new high-paying jobs. And the fourth critical priority is appointing and confirming strong constitutionalist judges to the Supreme Court and to all the federal courts. And I got to tell you, I think the single best thing President Trump has done is nominating Neil Gorsuch to the U.S. Supreme Court, and the best thing the Republican Senate has done is confirming Neil Gorsuch to the court. For all of us who care about and cherish the Constitution Constitution and Bill of Rights, for all of us who care about free speech and religious liberty and the Second Amendment and all the fundamental protections of what it means to be an American. It is the courts that are at the vanguard of either protecting or undermining those rights. Those four priorities. If we deliver on them, if we repeal the disaster that is Obamacare, if we pass fundamental tax reform, if we have major regulatory reform, if we confirm strong constitutionalist judges, this could be the most productive Congress in decades. And if we fail, if we come up short and don't deliver on any of them, this could be a truly heartbreaking missed opportunity. And so what I'm doing is I'm spending every waking moment, day and night, trying to bring Republicans together, trying to unite Republicans behind a very simple message: let's deliver on our promises. Let's do what we said we would do in September of 2017. Let's actually do what we said we would do in November of 2016. If we do that, the impact, the benefits of the country could be extraordinary. And I will say I'm grateful to be back in Amarillo with such good, wonderful, freedom-loving patriots. And it's an incredible privilege every day to have the chance to stand up and fight for you every day, fight for our shared values, fight for the great state of Texas. With that, happy to answer or dodge any questions you have.